disclaimer. The views of the guest and even the host sometimes are not necessarily the views of the Work With Me podcast and Ruse advisors.
Welcome.
Work. The interview. Preparing for the interview. Picking your final candidate. Going over the offer. On-board training. Being let go. All things work-related from the employee and employer side are fair game here at the Work With Me podcast. Interact with us at workwithmepodcast.com. Email us at bob@ruseadvisors.com or larindy@ruseadvisors.com. Your tough boss is Larindy Ruse. Your slacking employee is Bob Stei. And the fun starts now. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. We are having fun. How you doing, everybody? The Work With Me podcast. Bob Stei, Larindy Ruse. Or workwithmepodcast.com. 1023 HC2 KKNH, where classic rock lives. Also, tickradio.com. Yep, I've been talking to some more stations, websites. It'll grow. Trust me, I'm so excited. So excited for all the great guests we've had, too. Like Derek Hall last week. For the Charter Real Estate School. Not only was he fun to interview, but wow, what a sci-fi geek he is. I hope he watched that Twilight Zone episode I sent him from YouTube. Today we're going to talk to Eleni Farmakis. Did I say her name right? We'll find out later. Eleni is a marketing guru from the South who has been in New York City here with us. I'm looking forward to hearing that. And this podcast is growing every week. I thank you so much for listening. Tell a friend, tell a friend's friend, and tell a friend's friend. Last week, I told a story about interviewing, and one of the worst interviews I had on my end, where I interviewed somebody who did not want to tour the place. And I figured I would share another interview story, and I kept thinking about one of the worst interviews I ever did that could have changed my whole career, and I screwed it up. Things ended up great, but still. Now, I'm sure you know, because I've mentioned a few times, I am working on a book right now based on my college years, my 3 years in New York at Manhattan College in the early 90s, a million adventure stories. And by the way, if you're a publisher, reach out to me, please, Bob, at ruseadvisors.com, because I got a few talking to me that are just, they're not doing it right. I need somebody to help me. I like that little self-schmooze there. But the reason I bring that up is there is a chapter in the book where I talk about the one time I really, really screwed up an interview. I'm actually going to read it right out of the chapter. Now remember, my friends, this is a rough, sound like a dog, a rough draft. So what you're hearing now will probably not be the way it is when the book comes out. You know, I have a proofreader that I have, and I've got some other people who are helping me. So here's the rough draft, and they'll tell you the whole situation. And I can take you back to 1991. I am in my second junior year, as I like to call it, at Manhattan College in the Bronx. I think I'm on top of the world. I am the quote-unquote king of college radio. And it was time for me to do an internship. And somehow I landed an interview at WXRK, which was 92.3 K-Rock, Howard Stern's home station. Howard Stern was one of my big idols, and I still love Howard. So I had a chance to work at the station, and I screwed it up big time. So, some of the names have been changed to protect people. Some of the timelines do, some of the events. But here we are. The name of this chapter is Sorry, Howard, by Bob Stei. My WRCM show returned late September 1992, and we were full in election mode. Bill Clinton kept his lead after the debates, and the U.S. was in a full recession. My work was fine, and I coexist with my roommate without major drama. My advisor and I talked about an upcoming internship. I needed the schedule. I told her my dream was to work with Howard Stern at WXRK-FM 92.3 K-Rock in New York. Now, I'm sure every communications major in the tri-state area had this dream. But I was certain to make this happen. I called the station and told me there were internships available for the next semester. I instantly sent over my poor excuse for a resume, and followed up a few days later. The woman who ran the internship department set up an interview with me at 10 o'clock a.m. the next Wednesday. I was going to Infinity Broadcasting at the same time Howard was on the air. Now, I did not own a suit at the time, just for future I don't own one now either. So I did my best to match a jacket, shirts, pants, and tie. I tied my hair back in a ponytail, but the front kept flopping in my face. Otherwise, I looked like a mess. It was a muggy day, so I was sweaty as I went through a few subway transfers and walked 7 blocks to my destination. I arrived at Infinity Broadcasting, the home of WXRK and Howard Stern, around 9 a.m. I was told to be early, but I took it to an extreme. I expected to notice a familiar face in the lobby. It was rock pop star Kenny Loggins, who was going on with Howard that morning. I was already starstruck. I was in the same building with Howard and Kenny. My daydreaming came to a halt when my interviewer came to the lobby with a disgusted look on her face. "Robert, you're a hacker." I apologized and walked out the building for a quick bite. I was off to a bad first impression on an interview that meant the world to me. When I returned, I apologized again and we walked over to a conference room. We talked about the station and I let her know how much I loved K-Rock, Howard, and Infinity Broadcasting. I even listened to WJFK at home and WISP in Philly. I was coming across very strong. She had mentioned Stern may not have any availability, but the sister AM rocker Z-Rock needed help. She introduced me to the production director at the AM heavy metal station, another long-haired guy. Now this would have been an excellent foot in the door there, and it seemed like I would be pretty hands-on. What a great opportunity they presented. I was really looking to work with Howard or with K-Rock, I later responded. I don't know why I came to such a stupid conclusion, but I could tell I rubbed her the wrong way. We shook hands, and she said she'd be in touch. As I walked up the building and took my tie and jacket off, I was certain of one thing. I blew the interview. I followed up a few days later, and she told me, "Sorry, there are no more intern openings." I'm sure there were other people, but I took the blame and realized I completely tanked that day. Sorry, Howard. It's alright. I ended up having a radio career after all. Shh. So take my advice there. Don't be stupid, alright? We got our interview with Eleni coming up, but first a word from our sponsor. This is the Work With Me Podcast, workwithmepodcast.com, 1023, HD2, KKNH, where classic rock lives, and Tick Radio. Hi, it's Bob Stei. Look, anxiety and stress overload is very real, as life as we know it has just been turned upside down. Worldwide pandemic has triggered a stress response that has us feeling like we are falling apart. This roller coaster doesn't seem to stop. If you're experiencing panic attacks and stress burnout, causing a rapid decline in your health and ability to cope, and you've tried reading the books, getting therapy, and adjusting your diet, crushing panic and resulting fatigue, Divine Design with Alicia French can help. Through her own health and stress transformation and 6 years of experience as a functional nutrition practitioner focused on neuro-emotional balancing, Alicia has helped hundreds of clients get their health and lives back. Call or text her today for a 60-minute consultation. 509-638-4329, 509-638-4329, and tell her Bob Stei sent you.
Really looking forward to having Eleni Farmakis as our guest today on the Work With Me podcast. Eleni and I met a few months back because we were both providing some insight and mentorship to youth with one of the organizations that Eleni has been connected to, Philo for Thought. And she was the 2019 Young Professional of the Month back when Philo for Thought. And she was the 2019 Young Professional of the Month back when we first connected. And Eleni is a very talented public relations and digital marketing specialist, and we'll get a little bit more into that. But her family hails from Athens, Georgia, and she also has a wealth of experience in agency, nonprofit, in-house, and corporate public relations and marketing. And we always talk about, Bob, that if you have something you want to share with the world, the only way the world's going to know it is if you can effectively communicate that. Mm-hmm. And Eleni is very skilled at helping brands and consumers understand how they can connect with those brands. She's worked on amazing clients in major pharmaceutical and Fortune 500 companies. And beyond the professional arena, she's also involved in various philanthropy activities. Bob, she's also involved in Eleni. So great to have you with us this morning. Welcome to the Work With Me podcast.
Hi, Eleni.
Hi, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Our pleasure. So Eleni, we're going to go ahead and get right into it. So let's talk about your early years growing up in Georgia. So take us kind of on what the path was for your early formative years and how you ended up in journalism at the University of Georgia.
Yeah, so I grew up in Savannah, Georgia. I'm born and raised there. My parents are both Greek. They met in Greece, fun story, and then moved to Savannah. And that's where I, started school and everything. I grew up always very interested in medicine and was very involved with the Children's Hospital there growing up. Associated with the teen board and got really involved there from a local level with the teen board and got really involved there from a local level. Always had a passion for communicating, and was something my mom always said is, you're so good at just talking to people. You just talk to people well, and I don't know what you'll end up doing, but I really think something should be, something around communications and speaking. I did ballet for 14 years. I did piano for 10. So, I definitely had a somewhat traditional upbringing, but I also did Greek dancing, which was unique. And then, so I had high hopes to actually go directly from high school. I wanted to be up in New York, but God had other plans. We make plans and God laughs. And so University of Georgia, I was, when I graduated high school, at the time, UGA offered, or the state of Georgia offered the graduating valedictorian of high school. So was afforded an amazing opportunity to be at the University of Georgia. So that, you can't pass up a free ride of school and education. So I went to Athens, not Athens, Greece, Athens, Georgia. As my dad always reminds me, it's not the same, but they're still both amazing places. And got very involved there with the journalism school. Initially was interested actually in broadcast news. And that was something I was heavily pursuing, coming up to New York, doing informational interviews with several of the large news networks, which I won't name because I know now with the political season, there are so many different things going on. But so that was kind of where my sights were set. But again, took a step back, and I think it's super important. I feel kind of where my sights were set. But again, took a step back, and I think it's super important. I feel like so many times people get into college and it's like you're expected to know what you want to do from day one, freshman orientation. And I think it's such a process. It's an evolution, and even to this day, I feel like there are still things that you're continuing to learn and to grow and to figure out what it is you really want to do. But I took a chance and took a leap and applied to the journalism school. PR was the top major there, public relations. And that was my kind of bet. If I can get in to PR, then this is what we're going to do. I still had very high hopes for New York. So needless to say, when I got in, I thought, okay, this is a perfect opportunity, a way for me to give back, a way for me to use things I'm good at, writing, speaking, and, basically afford me the opportunity to get to New York right after graduation. I always joke about New York. It was certainly my first love, and it's, my home, back home, childhood home. The wallpaper for my bedroom is the New York City skyline. So, whenever I would have interviews with firms up here, I laugh now when I think about it. But I was the girl that said, yes, I love New York. I literally have it on my wall. Like, it was 100% undeniable. This girl wants to go to New York. So yeah, that's how I started, but I'm happy to answer more questions in terms of that journey up here for sure.
Well, I would love to back up just a little bit. You talked about studying ballet for how many years?
14.
14 years ballet, 10 years piano, that, that aggregation of 10,000 hours of practice,
Mm-hmm.
that aggregation of 10,000 hours of practice.
Mm-hmm.
And what we often see with people who are committed to the fine arts early in life is that discipline, the practice, and the performance really pays big dividends, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And it taught me so much just about, there were days where I was like, Mom, I do not want to go to ballet class today, or, piano recitals. Just the fear of having recitals in front of all of these adults I didn't know, and even just my peers through piano lessons. It was quite daunting, but I think at that early age, it really did teach me how to kind of embrace my fears and to just get up there in public speaking and things like that. Granted, piano, you're playing, but even more so, pressure is on because, I did point shoes. And so again, the same type of pressure. If you miss a step, you don't make that turn, everyone sees it on the stage. And I think it was definitely, it was tough at times, but to this day, I don't regret it because it taught me a lot.
Incredible. And so you started selling yourself very early from a perspective of your gifts, your talents, your skills.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like when was it before you graduated that you also started connecting to some brands and beginning to offer your services in the PR, communications, and digital world? When did that kind of start for you?
So I actually, I really did start. I felt like I started in high school. I was involved with, I mentioned a couple of the teen boards. The Children's Hospital, I was involved with, I mentioned a couple of the teen boards. The Children's Hospital one, as well as the Ronald McDonald House charities. So I was heavily involved there. I actually served as president in both of those organizations as a teen leader. And that to me was such an amazing opportunity to just really hone in on some of those skills and my passion. I think passion drives everything. If you don't have passion behind something, then yes, you might be able to do it, but are you going to do it to your fullest potential? Absolutely not. So for me, I was extremely passionate about those causes, and it allowed me the opportunity to delve in even further and also just cultivate those leadership skills. I mean, I think, as a teen, of course, there were things that I didn't know then that I now know today. And, but I also think there was this sweet innocence about it because I didn't know. And I was just super passionate about helping and wanting to see the kids in the hospital. I even worked in a newborn nursery back in the day, back in high school. And that was a summer job. And I was literally the first person to give a newborn baby their bath. And the parents would be watching, and I was the girl, which it blows my mind now that they allowed that, but it was a volunteer program for teens, but I was able to do that. And that was a really neat experience as well, to just be involved to that level. Right. So yeah, that was high school. And then it continued on into college. I had a part-time job in addition to just traditional school and everything. I thought that was important to have some real world experience and not just an internship, an actual customer service job. I think it's extremely valuable, no matter if you stay in customer service or not. I think life as a whole, there is elements of customer service, no matter what you're doing, even if you're just having a conversation with someone. So I worked it was a very, very large gym. It was an offset. It wasn't part of the university, but it was a gym that a lot of people went to. And so there I was able to sell in some of my social media skills and provide services and input to them, in addition to just being customer service there, but also being able to provide strategy around digital and how to promote their classes and membership packages and things like that.
So where you are today in your career, would you say you're more focused on the digital social piece or the PR comms piece, or is it kind of equal? Where are you kind of offering your services most keenly, and what do you love the most today?
So I have experience across a broad spectrum. I would say today, here and now, it's running an account. So knowing the ins and outs of my client's business, working in pharmaceuticals, I have more than one client. So I work at an agency with multiple clients. So my role is really to be that client mind reader, to understand what it is that they want, what do they want to communicate, how best to communicate that. And then I bring in specialists from our teams in terms of digital and crisis comms. Luckily I work at an agency that is global and extremely well suited to cater to large clients like the ones I have. So bringing in, if there is an issue that we need to take care of, I have an issues team. So my role is mainly to serve as that counselor. I do a lot of communications, though, in terms of working with news reporters and a lot of writing, and just a lot of coordination, internal coordination with the client's infrastructure and teams on both a national and global level, because all of the clients I have are global based companies. So it's a lot of coordination internationally as well.
Looks like you've been in training for a long time to become that trusted advisor, which is, it seems that this is what your clients look to you to be
Yes.
that overall trusted advisor and strategist that can bring whatever's needed to the party at any given time, whatever is most needed, and then also building those teams. So I'm really inspired by how you worked in a nonprofit arena from a very young age, and how you were a leader pretty early on, and bringing those teams to long learning that we take along the way, that we can build upon a really strong foundation. And it sounds like that's been your experience.
Yes.
That's fair to say.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also a passion of mine to help others, in terms of figuring it out, what they want to do. And like I said, it is an evolution, but to your point, there are stepping stones, and it all kind of, you might not see the, in the here and now where that could lead. But then you look back 5-10 years and you're like, oh wow, that actually, because I met that person, it led to XYZ. And I love helping people with that, because that's what I did. And I did informational interviews up here in New York all the time. And even though I didn't see that immediate return, I can now testify to how those helped form and shape where I am at today.
And your clients must, or hopefully they
form and shape where I am at today.
And your clients must, or hopefully they appreciate your rich background and all of that learning that you're able to now bring to them and enrich their lives, so that they really can have strong communications with the people that they're meant to stand in service with as well.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. So Bob, let's talk about Elena's name. Interesting.
Yes, and you are listening to the Work With Me podcast at workwithmepodcast.com, 102.3 HD2 KKNH, where classic rock lives, and Tick Radio. Now, it's Eleni, correct?
Correct.
Which is a nickname from Helen.
Yes.
Tell me about the origin of your name there.
Yeah, so I am 100% Greek, and very proud to be Greek. Let's see, I mentioned, my parents met in Greece, and so lots of fun stories there, but light. So I love that. I love the bright connotations of that. And so, I growing up, I went by Helen. That was what my grandmother was named. And just growing up in the South too, I think my parents were worried that they wouldn't know how to pronounce Eleni. And now, looking back, I feel like in New York, it's much more of a common name, but growing up in the South, I think they just thought it might be easier just to say Helen. Sounds a little bit easier, but Helen of Troy, it's all connected. It's all connected. It's all Greek to me.
Yeah, I'm the one guy on the show today with the boring name. What am I going to do?
No.
You and Lorindy were talking a little bit before. You pretty much started marketing and selling at a very, very young age. And as I look through your resume and background, it's a lot of big names, a lot of big companies and clients. When you go through that time in your life, name 1 or 2 times where you have to stop now and go, wow, I did that, or I did that at a young age. What are some of your big accomplishments you think about?
Yeah. Oh man. Gosh, so many different experiences that I've had. I think, one of the ones when I first started, when I moved up to New York, and I briefly mentioned this, but I moved up to New York very quickly, 2 days after I graduated college. I was in a class Friday. Saturday, I left my college apartment. Sunday, I moved up to New York. Monday, I was in the city on a very rainy day, no less, which is a great welcome to this city. And then Tuesday, I was already in San Francisco to meet my pharmaceutical clients. And at the time, that was a project I was extremely passionate about. It was in the mental health area, and I was able to help work on quite a life-saving drug. And I can't mention it by name, of course, but it was extremely rewarding to be able to be involved from that level as someone entry level into my industry. Had never interned here in New York before. So that to me was one of those like experiences where I said, okay, wow, that I actually made a difference and was able to help build that drug and help communicate about that drug. So that was a huge one. I also was involved, another experience that I will always remember. I worked on a very high visibility Supreme Court case, and was able to handle the crisis communications for that. And that to me will always go down as one of those experiences that definitely formed me, shaped me. One of those, to your point, wow, I can't believe I actually did it. So, but, I continue to find opportunities and experiences where, sometimes I do have to take a step back and say, oh, okay. I think sometimes we get so caught up in the rush, go, 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 that we don't even take a step back to realize what we've done and accomplished, whether it's something minor or something major. I think it's all worth celebrating and recognizing, and propels you to go forth into more things.
Now, maybe it's just me fantasizing, but I'm seeing our next Supreme Court justice right here on you. What do you think?
Oh, I don't know about that now.
Or always handling the comms for the Supreme Court. That would be a task.
Yes. The comms, okay, maybe. I don't know if I want to be up on the screen during these hearings every day, but
now, one thing we both have in common to a different degree is the adjustment to New York. I talk often on our podcast about the last minute decision I made when I was 20 to go to college in New York. And even though I was only 3 or 4 states away, the culture shock was amazing. And I always joke about it, and I'm writing a book on it too as well, about the first month or two was the definition of hell. And then the last 3 years, all I kept planning was, how am I going to stay here? What was your adjustment? This good Southern girl from Georgia, from Savannah, with some time in Athens. Here you are in New York City. Tell us about it.
Oh man, I loved it. I was extremely excited. Everyone was worried. Everyone was worried. Like, you're from the South. Are you sure you want to go to New York? They're big, bad, mean people in New York. Like, I don't know. I heard everything. And every time someone would say something, I said, nope, I love it. I want to be there. I heard everything. And every time someone would say something, I said, nope, I love it. I want to be there. This is where I'm going to go. And again, I had visited, but I had never officially lived there. I only knew one person moving up here, fun fact, which was also a level of, just fear factor there. But I found the city to be extremely welcoming and warm. I still do to this day. New Yorkers are some of the nicest people you'll ever meet. They're willing to help. I'll never forget one time on the subway, of course, going the wrong way, as every good Southerner would do. And also asking a stranger on the subway, hey, do you know how to get XYZ? And this nice businessman, like dressed to the nines, he was great. He spoke with me. He was extremely nice. And okay, again, I now living in the city for 8.5 years, I get it. There are days where I'm like, I don't want to, I got to go stand, and I appreciate that. But I think, in terms of New York as a whole, those first few months, I had the highest of highs in terms of experiences, rooftops and, and it was during the summer. So I was fully immersed into this New York culture. And then I did have the lowest of lows in terms of, wow, I'm here. I'm alone. I don't know anyone except one person, and they don't even live in the city. So I definitely had that mix. And then I think, for me, it was one of these just true love. I love the city so much. So, you have your good days and your bad days. And I love the quote, a bad day in New York is better than a good day anywhere else. So, and that's just stuck with me. And, every time I go back to Savannah, they're always like, okay, is this the year? Is this the year? But needless to say, I'm still here and I still love it.
Before I turn things back to Lorindy with some follow-up, I do want to share a couple of subway stories with you. It's so funny you bring that up.
Yeah.
I was in New York at a very different time, from 1990 to about 93, which is probably what New York is like now. It's a little rougher, a little edgier. And I do remember two subway stories. The first time I ever went home for a weekend back to Baltimore.
Yeah.
And I have no sense of direction to begin with. I don't even know how I get out of my house sometimes without GPS. So I remember I take the train back to Penn Station, and in my mind, I wrote in big letters, take the 1-9 train. I went to college in the Bronx. It's the last stop of the 1-9 train. You get off the stairs, my dorm room is right there. It cannot be easier. So I got my 2 suitcases there. I'm looking at the sign at Penn Station. 1-9, downtown. And instead of uptown, I thought it said Upton. And I'm like, well, my dorm's definitely not in Upton. I guess going downtown. So about 40 minutes later, I'm sitting there like, I think I took the wrong turn.
Oh my gosh.
They were able to redirect me. And I remember David Letterman had a classic line in the 80s or 90s about New York. He goes, you'll be safe. Just never take a letter train after midnight. Which unfortunately, I did a million times.
Oh yeah. It's part of the experience. It's part of the it's the initiation into New York for sure.
You can't navigate, you haven't really truly navigated the subway system if you haven't taken the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
At least once, because part of it too is that, for me, it was very often when I lived in the city, worked in the city, breathed everything about the city, was that you're fully immersed in that. And it's so easy that you can definitely get on the wrong, even the very experienced traveler can get on the wrong train. But here's the good thing, and I got on the right train for your career. And Eleni, would love to hear from you any words of advice you would give to young people, especially coming up in PR and comms, because it is not an easy industry. And the connections that you need to have to be really a successful publicist and comms person, really working those connections. What advice would you give to someone that's considering this field, or they're in the field, but they're young? Because there can be some, just like New York, some real highs and some real lows, right? So what advice would you give to our listeners regarding that?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many things. And I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in all these things. Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do this? Should I do that? I think getting down to basics, being able to talk to people and follow up with people is huge. And I don't think that happens a lot in the industry, especially with, people that are new to the industry, maybe right out of college. I think sometimes I've seen graduates they're a little timid and scared to reach out to someone on LinkedIn and say, hey, I really like what you've done with your career. Can we talk about it? And I think there's so much value in doing that. And so many people don't, I don't know if they're scared or they just don't think someone would respond. But, I say this and I always tell young professionals, if you reach out to someone on LinkedIn and you want to hear more about their career, if someone did that to me, hands down, I would want to talk to them. And, people like talking about themselves. So, and I think that's a big lesson I also learned is when you ask someone to share a story or share how they came up, like they want to talk about it. They want to share their experience and they want to help.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's a big thing. I also just think immersing yourself in the news, and I also just think immersing yourself in the news and the industry. So, for instance, for those that I lead our internship program at my current company, and it's so important to hear that they're reading up on the news, reading what's going on, have a pulse. Are they reading something in the morning? Just getting that and feeling like a sponge, more or less, in terms of who's reporting on this, what are the trends you're seeing. I mean, these are simple things that can really make a difference when it comes to getting into this industry. And yeah, I would just say I think a big thing is the follow-up and not being afraid to reach back out again, to be bold. I mean, I think PR as a whole, the most successful people I do see are the bold ones, the ones that aren't afraid to call back up and to say, hey, I have another opportunity for you. Or, and on the flip side, being by knocking, there's other ways to open it, right? So I think it's just important to have that mindset, and being strategic about it as well.
I really appreciate that, Eleni. We talk about our ABCs are always be curious, always be creative, and then you'll always be closing.
Yep.
The other way around. So Bob has a little fun segment where we get to know you just a little bit better. So Bob, I'm going to let you take Eleni. I'm going to allow you to have someone escort her to this island.
Sure, and I'm going to try to pronounce her name now, screwing it up. Eleni Farmakis. Did I do it?
Perfect.
Look at me. You're with Eleni Farmakis on the Work With Me podcast. In my opinion, the fastest growing podcast globally, 102.3 HC2, KKNH, where classic rock lives, tickradio.com and workwithmepodcast.com. Now I'm putting you on a stranded island. You're away from Manhattan. You're away from Savannah. You're away from Athens. But you're going to have some luxuries you get to choose. So first, you're away from Athens, but you're going to have some luxuries you get to choose. So first of all, you can only eat one food or one type of cuisine the rest of your life. What's it going to be, Eleni?
Oh man, Greek, hands down. Hands down.
Like a good gyro?
Gyro, actually.
Gyro.
But yes. Yeah, well, fun fact, I'm Greek, but I don't eat meat. So let the jokes run fast on that one. But yeah, lots of good, healthy Greek dishes though.
Like a pita with feta cheese. How's that?
All right, we'll deal with that.
Right.
That'll work.
One book to read the rest of your life.
Oh gosh, so many great books. I'm a person of faith, so for me it would be my Bible. I think with that it can go anywhere. So
one movie to watch. Is it gonna be My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
It actually wouldn't. I am a hopeless romantic. I love the cheesy chick flick movies, so mine would be Father of the Bride, hands down.
Great one. Great movie.
Best.
Yeah, Steve Martin was great in that.
So great.
One TV show or series to watch over and over.
Oh, that's a tough one. I would actually say, and I got back into it over quarantine, but I love Lucy.
Really? Look at you going old school.
I grew up with it, and now I started watching it again, and I'm like, oh, you know what? This is actually entertaining. I mean, it's interesting to see the parallels now in terms of what we have today, but I feel like sometimes all the shows today, I can't keep up. So like, stick to the classics. Can't go wrong with that.
There wasn't a problem she couldn't get into and she couldn't get out of.
Yep.
Exactly. Many lessons out of that, for sure.
And one musician or band to listen to the rest of your life.
Oh man, Frank Sinatra, hands down. Hands down. Love him. He's the best. He's definitely that one dinner guest that, dead or alive, you'd want, and he's mine. Love him.
What an interesting bunch of answers. So where can people reach out to you for promotions or anything they might need assistance with?
Yeah, I am on LinkedIn. I'm on all the social channels. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm all around, always accessible, as every PR professional should be. So yeah, everyone can certainly reach out through there, and I'd be happy to connect.
That's Eleni Farmakis. Thank you so much for being on the Work With Me podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you so much. And thank you for bringing your faith and your divine. Thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Work With Me podcast with Bob Stei and Lorindy Ruse. Original score by Mark Ruse. The show has been edited and produced by Bob Stei. If you have a comment, would like to advertise, be a guest or an affiliate of the Work With Me podcast, email bob@ruseadvisors.com. Copyright 2020 Ruse Advisors.